Hi, welcome to episode 3 of the Future of Work. My name's Gavin O'Mara. I'm the CEO and founder of FE News, and this is a really cool episode. I'm really looking forward to this. This is around sustainability, green skills, and preparing for a green revolution. Got a really interesting episode for you because we are also on location at the Green Skills Summit. We're FE News media partner. I'm joined with David Jones, who's my he's like the on location king. He's been on location with me on many of these different conferences and the such, and we got some really cool guests. We've got Paul Warner, who I've known for stupid amount of time. Paul, it's really great that he's going to be with us, and Craig Woodburn from British Vault, which has got a really exciting thing going on with building the first gigafactory in the UK. So we've got a really cool episode. I'm on location here in sunny Devon. It's a little bit cold to be outside with my biomass and wind turbines, but I wonder if David, if you could join me from the Green Skills Summit.
Yeah, absolutely. Morning, Gavin. Thanks very much for having me back on.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you back on. It's a really cool episode today, and you're on location at the Green Skills Summit at the moment, which is with AELP, and it's literally just kicked off. So loads of cool stuff to be sort of going to be coming out of that. And we thought it was just really good to be able to try to segue those together. I think it's a really interesting time for us as the economy. We've had the government's 10-point plan around seeing 250 green jobs in many sectors. But David, maybe setting the scene a bit, more and more things are being classified as green jobs. But what exactly are green jobs?
Yeah, I'm going to come back to that question, Gavin. I'm just going to say something. You mentioned I'm on location, so we're in 15 Hatfields in London, and it's it's a leading kind of sustainability venue. I'm not on commission. So it's really interesting though. I'm in room bio. There's other rooms, kind of earth, water, wind. They look very much at the kind of the organic food, things like replacing the wrapping round food with compostable films, not having sellotape and that kind of thing. So I just thought I'd mention that. So I thought that's really interesting today to see that actually in practice. But what's a green job? Good question, and I've got some notes because there are so many different definitions. It's hard to actually touch on one. So you've got kind of UN Environment Programme talking about positions in agriculture, manufacturing, research and development, and administrative. For example, aimed at substantially preserving or restoring environmental quality. International Labour Organization defines it more broadly and considers green jobs as those involving activities such as community adaptation to climate change. The Office for National Statistics produces the Low Carbon and Renewable Energy Survey, covering economic activities that deliver goods and services that are likely to help the UK generate lower emissions of greenhouse gases, predominantly carbon dioxide. There's the ONET classification, which comes from the United States. There's the Green Jobs Task Force definition, which refers to the term green job, and that's used to signify employment in an activity that directly contributes to or indirectly supports the achievement of the UK's net zero emissions target and other environmental goals, such as nature restoration and mitigation against climate risks. I think it's fair to say, that there will be roles that require more technical skills, which are more overtly green as we talk about green and think about green. But actually, it's really important to remember that every job's got the potential to become green as we move to combat climate change. And there are a huge range of skills which are basically going to support the transition to that kind of net zero economy.
So that's really interesting because that gives a really good definition, and lots of different people got definitions. But also, that's a lot of information. People are like, well, how can I be? What are green skills? And it's this sort of, and it's very confusing for people to be able to then understand what that could mean for the future, isn't it? If you know what I mean? I think education's got a role here, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? It's got a massive role around how we shape individuals, employers, and also educators, how to get there for the future. I mean, I don't know what you think about that around how does education play a key role, really.
No, absolutely. I think education's got a fundamental role to play in this. You mentioned employers. You mentioned how kind of people individually can get involved. I think it underpins sustainability and the kind of move towards net zero. Like I said, whether that's through kind of people developing the technical skills they need, or the softer skills, the essential skills, which will help them transition between sectors. And I think we can support that reskilling, that upskilling, and that awareness piece. We all have a role to play in this. No matter how small it might be, learning how to recycle, make different choices about various different things. Parents supporting children with career choices. We all have to play a role in it, and education underpins. Without the education piece, we can't succeed.
Yeah, no, definitely. I wonder if I could bring our guests in. Paul Warner from AELP, who's also on location at Green Skills Summit. I'm interested what room you're in, actually, Paul. One of you could join us in the studio. And Craig Woodburn from British Volt, one of you could join us as well. Hey, guys, how are you?
Morning.
Hi. Good to meet you.
Hi, very well, thank you. I'm in the Thai.
Oh, it's breaking up a bit, Paul. I don't know if you can repeat that at all.
I think Paul's in the
tidal room. Yeah.
Ah, very cool.
Yeah.
I really wouldn't want to be in the wind room, to be honest. But other than that, it all sounds good. I think that's interesting. We've got two incredibly good guests here. So Paul within AELP, as I've been doing FE News for 18 years. Paul, I've known you for all that time, I think, actually, to be honest. And Paul's got a really good understanding around skills, but also ability, which is really, really key here for looking at green skills. Craig, British Volt, incredibly interesting. People haven't come across British Volt before. You will do. It is a very, very, very interesting organisation. Going to do the first gigafactory in the UK that's going to be operational in Northumberland. It's hit the news that literally the other day. Craig is really good to meet you and to join us, and it's definitely an organisation people will be hearing of. It feels like one of those moments when people are like, Tesla, what's Tesla? You'll think like British Volt is going to be one of those things. You're like, you saw it here first, everyone. I wonder if I could bring you both in, Craig and Paul, with key green skills, because Green Skills Summit. You've mentioned, David, like food processing, wrappers, around your food not having to be like plastic and being unsustainable, and through to like venues, but also education skills and employers. So, what would you say are the key green skills that learners and individuals need to be equipped with to make the shift for this green skills revolution? Paul, I wonder if I could kick off with you.
Yeah, I mean the 10-point plan for the green industrial revolution, I think that came out last year. I mean, it's very ambitious in its scale, and there's a staggering number of jobs that it's setting out in there. It's you look at the individual areas of it, it's saying like 60,000. It's talking about in offshore wind alone by 2030, 50,000.
Paul, I'm sorry.
Domestic industry through. Am I back on again? Can you got me?
Yeah, it's dropped a minute. This is the thing, being on location, people. It's live. So you're saying there's with the 10-point plan, there's like huge sort of range of roles.
There's a staggering range of jobs in there. Yeah, absolutely. The plan also explicitly says that it could take up to about 5 years to like develop the apprenticeships and the programs and things that are going to be needed. And the plan itself is going for 2030. So that sort of suggests that we might not have, if we don't get on and start now, we might not have a suitable range of programs until about 2027. And we're supposed to get this 250,000 by 2030. Now, I'm not saying it's not achievable, but it does mean we can't hang about. We not only need to develop those skills, but as a sector, as a skills sector, we need to speed up that whole process of development. We can't keep being in this situation of having interminable conversations about whether or not there's quite enough employer demand to warrant an apprenticeship standard right now. Unless we get on and develop these things now, future-proof ourselves, even before the demand really manifests itself in the economy, it's just going to be too late.
Yeah, no, definitely. Craig, that's what a segue to Craig with employer, so with employer head, but also setting up, an exciting massive factory that's going to be sort of bringing in new technology into the UK. That's really, really, really interesting. So where do you sort of see, and follow on from what Paul said, but also those key green skills?
I think you're right. I mean, we're going to have upwards of 3,000 people when the plant's operational in a couple of years, and so some of those skills and specific to our industry, but actually a lot are transferable as well from prior industries. I mean, we're located in Northumberland. There's a history of engineering experience and shipbuilding and coal mining and that experience there. That those skills are still transferable into our industry. There's specific roles that will need different experiences. So when we're doing research and development around battery chemistry and things like that, those are newish skills as we transition into having more and more battery chemists in the UK. But a lot of the activity now, we're building the factory. It's a green factory. We've set a number of targets which we're monitoring in terms of green build with solar panels, which is fully electric, so no gas. So a lot of those experiences that people already have will come across. And equally, I think we're probably in a good place in terms of awareness of sustainability and environment as a topic at the moment. With having COP26 only a couple of months ago, I think that obviously hit the headlines on the news all the time, and people who are coming looking for jobs with us are aware of those topics and want to engage with us because we're part of that energy transition, and also that they're all doing their own research and asking and learning themselves because it is a topic they see as an opportunity, and that's what it is. It's an opportunity for people to move quickly into these openings.
Yeah, no, that's really. You mentioned something really interesting there, Craig, about transferable skills, because there's a lot of roles which can transfer, and I think a lot of roles are going to have sustainability within them anyway. From like office manager to admin to food processing, like you mentioned, David. Paul, what do you sort of think around sort of transferable skills? What do we need to be thinking of around sort of apprenticeships, all of the different programs that we can have around those transferable skills, so as we could be thinking of ways to be able to bring people into different markets? We've got the big reshuffle, the great resignation. It's like the greatest transfer of skills ever at the moment. It's this, we're in this real fourth industrial revolution. What do we need to be thinking around for transferable skills?
Yeah, I mean, I think one conversation that we certainly in the sector, I don't think we've had enough at the moment. We're beginning to look at what green skills should be and how we should frame them, how we should help to develop and train them. But actually, one of the crucial things we need as a sector to be able to do is to instill green behaviours in the workforce as well.
Yeah.
That's absolutely key. And it doesn't matter whether or not they're in what might be termed a hard green job or not. We need green behaviours. So even if you've got, I don't know, a barista in a coffee bar or something, even if they're not following a green apprenticeship, there are lots of wider behaviours we should be looking at nurturing to get them to behave in a green and sustainable way. What washing up liquids they use, how much water they use in preparation, and minimising packaging, as David was saying just now. We've got to, if we're going to realise this whole vision of the green economy, these intrinsic behavioural skills are, they're just as important as the hard skills that often come to mind.
Mm-hmm. Is that the same for you, Craig? Is that, we talk about the transferable skills. Is that something that's important to British Fold?
Yeah, behaviours. I mean, environment and sustainability is key to our business. It's embedded within the business already. So a lot of the people who are coming have got that awareness. But actually, like you say, I guess publicly now, people separate the waste. People are aware of packaging. We have the packaging tax on plastic bags, so people don't just take the bags and things. So some of those behavioural sort of changes are already coming through. And if you think back, I guess when we were kids, our parents used to say, "Turn the lights off, don't leave the lights on," and stuff. It wasn't necessarily because of thinking about carbon, but now we start thinking about the carbon impact of that energy waste. It was more about probably the bills then and the cost, which might be a challenge in the future. But yeah, people are turning those lights off now anyway because of behavioural things that we've embedded from when we were younger. So I think that's where we've got the opportunity, and then people can use those awarenesses and skills and bring them from the home life into the work life as well.
David, I know you're co-host, so I want to ask you a question on this actually. You wrote a really cool article the other day on sustainability and looking at what NCFE are doing. Thinking of transferable skills, there's a way that we could be looking at all quals really, and all things that people are doing, which then can transition into things in different ways. But also as organisations to be thinking about what we're doing around, sustainability, greening all roles really. Your article was cool. I'd love to. Maybe some people who didn't read it. Do you know what I mean? So I wonder if you could maybe unpack it a little bit.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. It's a good question, Gavin. I think what we're looking to do at NCFE is how can we support people across the sector? How can we look at our learners and support them to get the skills that they need, those horizontal skills. So sustainability being one. How can we weave those into our learning solutions? Where can we fit sustainability in so people are aware that they've got it? How do people understand that? Okay, I've done this qualification or this, I've learned about this, and actually this is where sustainability fits. So they understand that, and that gives them some value. That's the kind of the human capital that they've got. They can take that to an employer. I know about this. And move that in. They might have been in a completely different sector. It's absolutely about kind of supporting learners, signposting the opportunities that are there. And I think some of this plays into kind of that regional geography as well. How can we educate people about the opportunities that are within their regions? How can we then work with employers to kind of map that demand also? Like we say, some of it is going to be in green qualifications, but a lot of it is going to be that kind of awareness, that understanding piece at an individual level, I think, and how that skill that they've got, teamwork and communication, how that's relevant for a green role, but how that's relevant, how they can use that, and how they can adapt into something else.
Yeah, no, that's really, really cool. I'd ask all the questions, but I'll let you go. And I know you've got a bunch for the guys as well. I'll let you jump in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'll go with Craig first on this one. So, what do you think are the biggest changes that we're going to see over the next 10 years when it comes to green jobs and sustainability?
I think the transition is we'll have to learn a new language around carbon. So it's not French and German and all the other languages. We've got a language now of carbon, and businesses are communicating around that. Governments are communicating around that. And I think part of any role, however you influence it, whether it be the packaging, whether it be administration and finance and calculations and things like that, carbon will be a line item in those discussions. So I think that needs to be embedded in whatever we're doing, because people will refer to that and it'll be something that they'll communicate around, like I say, in various ways, whether it be packaging. I mean, one thing we're looking to do, we've set up a British Vault Foundation, which is looking at upskilling and bringing people who maybe haven't got some of those skills available now, but making them more aware of some of these topics, and getting them ready for the opportunities that are around, particularly in the Northeast, where there's quite an establishment of decarbonisation activities, really. So even if they are not successful joining us, there's the ability to use those skills to go into other entities and other businesses located close by or further afield. So I think, as I say, carbon and the language of carbon will become more mainstream, and become a topic that will be part of everybody's education.
Brilliant. Thanks, Craig. I'll throw the question over to you, Paul. It'd be interesting to find out what the providers are telling you about that, where we're going as a sector over the forthcoming period of time.
I think that's partially why we set up, well, one of the major reasons actually why we set up the Green Skills Summit in the first place is because the sector needs to have that conversation. It needs to have those conversations with itself, and we need to be able to ask some stupid questions about what exactly is it that we're talking about, because we're never going to be able to explain this. We're never going to be able to lead the way and help employers if we don't really understand what it is we're doing. And that's that thing about, I think the biggest change for me, actually, not the biggest change maybe, but a major point for me through the course of today at the summit is about getting the sector to, we've always been very responsive to employers, but actually we've got to become really proactive. We've actually really got to lead the way in this. There was, I was doing a bit of research on this over the last couple of days, and I came across a quote that was attributed to, I think, the head of the US patent office or something at the end of the 19th century, and he was quoted as saying that everything that could be invented had been invented at that point. Now, actually, he never said it, but that quote, I thought, highlighted the temptation to look at what you think you know now as you guide for what you're going to need in the longer term. And just expanding that a bit, I also remembered I went to see, I listened to Will Hutton, who was at the Work Foundation at the time, must have been early 2000s somewhere. And he was talking about the then very new concept of online shopping and how it was being touted as already changing the face of work and roles of employment. He then pointed out that as things stood at that time, basically it was just a refinement of phoning the store up, getting someone to walk around with a basket, chucking it in a lorry and driving it down the road, which is hardly not, he said it's not exactly the brave new world, is it? His point wasn't that would never change, but you can't just look at the here and now and say, oh, these are the skills we need, because the rate of change is so fast that 5, 10 or 15 years, there's going to be skills needs we haven't even envisaged yet. And there's going to be a refinement probably of something we think we already know, but we probably don't. So we've really got to get ahead of the game. So my substantial change, I think, looking forward, is how we approach this. We have to think much more long term than we currently do.
I think, thanks, Paul. I think it's a systems thinking. It's a joined up approach, isn't it? It's about the collaboration. So employers, providers, awarding organisations, government. How we can all work together. What are the changes that need to take place? Absolutely. That brings me on to my next question. Actually, it's so climate change and green sustainability thinking are global issues. Is there anything that we can learn from other countries when it comes to those, sustainable practices and more green thinking? Go with Paul.
I do genuinely believe, actually, the UK is sort of at the head of a charge in this sort of area. And, of course, there's lots to learn from international experience and expertise. But I think we have a terrible tendency in this country to forget that despite the fact that our system of skills is a bit unwieldy, it's a bit sprawling, it's one that attracts attention across the world. We've got a lot of really good things that we can do in this system that we can bring to this green agenda. I was on a call a couple of days ago, actually, with the governor's office in Missouri, and he was quite upfront in saying that they've taken the English apprenticeship model because it's really good and it's worked for them. They've no reason to try and fundamentally meddle with it. So international experience is really vital. And the bit we can offer to that is what we're good at. We have actually got the fundamentals of a really good system and how we address skills needs from employers, how we articulate that. The planet's never going to get a global, never going to globally address this if we don't put in everything that we have to offer. That's what we have to offer, and we can learn a lot from other people. And together, the planet can pull together. Sounds a bit trite, but you can pull the planet together and make it work.
Mm-hmm. Craig, be good to get your take on it as well. It's a very appropriate question for you, given the map in the background.
I have worked quite a lot globally, actually. So, and looking on sustainability and the regulations and how that's works across the globe. I'd agree with Paul in terms of some of the approaches the UK has taken are leading the way. But actually, you also see in some countries where you wouldn't expect it, some of the learnings and activities that they do. I did some work in Brazil, and they brought some new legislation out, and the local businesses were charged with educating the communities on some of that legislation. So they held events calling on the local communities and gave the people the understanding of some of this legislation. So it wasn't just written on a piece of paper and for politicians to act upon. It was a communication that needed them rolling out around biodiversity and facilities and green management of habitat and things. And so it was important for the communities, and they rolled it out through that way, which, maybe there's those opportunities for businesses to have more of that community interaction. And again, that gives you that opportunity through that early engagement to educate maybe some of the younger people coming through and make them aware and attract them and tickle that interest in science and sustainability. That's what they want to get into as they get older and seize those opportunities early. So there is lots around. But yeah, UK is pretty good, and you do see that being mirrored and reflected globally as well.
Brilliant, thanks, Craig. Just something I want to pick up, Gavin. Sorry to interrupt. I think it's going to be interesting to see what the DFE do with the the climate change strategy that's going to be coming in April. I think we're talking internationally. Italy's become one of the first countries to mandate it through the curriculum, sustainability and kind of green practices. So from September 2020, all Italian students in every grade are learning about climate change and sustainability. It's bringing them to the forefront of environmental education. So we wait to see what comes through in that paper. But I think that's interesting. There are some examples of good practice that we can kind of learn from, and I think that's a really great point that somebody's raised. We need to look at how we can embed units across all aspects. So you mentioned apprenticeships earlier, Paul. Yeah, great point from Janet. We need to put sustainability units, all apprenticeships, to educate all, and it is important, I think, particularly with the rise of energy costs.
Yeah, 100%, and I think it's. That's interesting what's happening with Italy. Really good you raised about DFE. I think there's a couple of drivers here, aren't there? We've got to be driven by like DFE and government, also employers. Craig's got needs that his business needs to be able to deliver on, and it's interesting that you're doing the summit today, Paul, with like trying to bring that all together and just say like what we've got to deliver on here. And I think there's also learners which are driving. We had Future of Work last week was all around looking at early years, and they were covering sustainability and our real little ones, how they can then influence their families and communities, and what that then means for green skills for the future. I just think there's such an interesting time for us. No wonder you got a summit, Paul, because I could talk forever on there, about a million questions. We're nearly wrapping up at the end. I just wanted to ask everyone but one final question, really, and it's what we've done on all Future of Work. So if you could dream and dream big, what would you want to see for the future of green skills? Craig, what would you want to see?
I touched upon it on the first answer, I think, is everybody becomes carbon literate. Everybody understands that and the impacts and the benefits of reducing that in terms of what they do from living at home through the working life. So, yeah, carbon literacy. No,
that sounds very cool. Paul, what would you want to see?
I talked a bit earlier on about behaviours, actually, and I think what I'd like to see is the approach to green and to sustainability to become second nature, that I'm very proud that we've pulled together an ALP Green Skills Summit today, but really we shouldn't be having a Green Skills Summit. We should be having a Skills Summit, which is just incorporated, it's just embedded, it's second nature within it. We will get there. It was only 20 years ago that UFI set up, and we had Learn Direct set up, and we had the first online, and that was sort of a big thing over here that was a bit different. Now it's second nature. Everybody's embedded it. It's just what we do. And I think the faster we can get to that point, happier I'd be.
Yeah, no, that sounds really cool. We've got loads of people online are really getting into this. We've had loads of people saying this, really looking forward to it. We've had another point come over from Danny as well. David, what would you want to see for the dream big? I know this is really close to you. I know we've had loads of conversations offline about this. What would you want to see around the future?
I really want to see that collaboration. I really want to see that collaboration between us all to really start moving this forward. I think Danny makes a great point there on LinkedIn. So the real need to help businesses to understand more about green jobs, green skills, to maximize the potential and impact. So we've got some great examples of that in British Folk. We're talking to you this morning, but there's other businesses out there that might not know how to start thinking sustainably, how to understand what skills people are going to need coming into those roles. So, like I say, really want to see that closer collaboration to drive this agenda forward, to actually see some tangible results. We need that kind of momentum.
Yeah, no, definitely. I've really enjoyed today's show. We're out of time. I might as well answer what I would want if I was to dream big. We're talking around sustainability, green skills, green revolution. I agree with everyone. on Paul, I think it's great you're doing the Green Skills Summit, but I think you're right. I think this needs to be an extension of what we're talking about. David, an extension of your article the other day. We need to build this into everything that we're doing. And Craig, what an exciting role you've got around developing that skills force for the future. I think we're got to be thinking ecosystem, sustainable ourselves, working with DFE, employers, with providers, with colleges, with awarding organisations. How do we all come together to deliver what is right? Like Paul, you mentioned like baristas. Well, how we sort of living by example with the coffee shop around the corner from a provider, or the coffee shop in a college that's sort of doing something cool with the coffee grounds. Do you know what I mean? Or the packaging, or that we're immersed in the sort of the system of the future. How are we then helping learners then to better pass on that? Like you said, Craig, turn off the lights. Can we do this? How can we be more sustainable in our business practices? I just think it's so exciting, but I think it's got to be right now.
It does.
A lot. Sharma was crying with like this what he could see was coming down the track after speaking to a shed load of global experts. It's really, really key. The comments still coming in. I agree. LinkedIn user said collaboration, not just cooperation. Totally agree. And Danny is coming again, and I'll let his comment go there because we're over time. Danny, sorry. This has been a total collaborative working sort of live stream. So Team NCFE, David, you absolutely brilliant co-host again on location. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Sam, thank you for all your support in the background. Team AELP, Paul, thanks so much for joining us when you've got a conference going on around you. Rebecca and Matt as well. Thank you so much. Team FE News, Leah, thank you. Kelly for your set design. Also Finley as well. Thank you everyone for bringing this all together. It's a real team effort to bring this. Thank you so much. I hope this has inspired you. I hope Green Skills Summit goes really, really well. I know there's going to be some articles coming out the back of it on FE News about outcomes. So check those out really, really soon. And I hope everyone gets on really great at the summit. And good to have those conversations. Oh, Craig, I would love to hear more and more about your journey. It sounds so exciting. And everyone, I hope you've enjoyed today. Thank you, everyone, for getting involved online and joining us on today's episode. See you next week, National Apprenticeship Week special, and we'll see you really soon. Thanks very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks.